My name's Angelo, and welcome to We Want Picks. This is the only channel dedicated to UFC picks and DraftKings lineups run by professional fighters and MMA insiders. Every week, I join Nick Newell, professional fighter, professional model, and ESPN Top 10 guest, along with Dan Kramer, UFC fighter, Bellator fighter, Ultimate Fighter alumni, and Jacob Lyons, a skinny kid from Indiana. And we break down every single fight, the betting odds, the DraftKings picks, and we set you up for success. Next up at UFC 259, we have the main event of the evening. We have Jan Blachowicz defending his light heavyweight championship belt against Israel Adesanya, who is moving up a weight class to challenge him. Before we get into our picks, Dan Kramer reached out to Glover Teixeira to ask him his thoughts on this fight. Glover Teixeira is the #1 contender in the light heavyweight division on the planet. He's also in Las Vegas right now, cutting weight and preparing for this fight, because if Israel drops or if Jan drops, Glover steps right in and takes that spot. So we reached out to him, asked him for his picks, and not only does he break down this fight and how he thinks this will go, he also had John Hackleman with him, who is the head of the Pit Fight team, Chuck Liddell's head coach. He had Fernelly with him, who's his boxing coach. He also had Alex Pereira with him, who is the only person ever to knock out Israel Adesanya. So check this out. Let's see who they pick.
Hey guys, Glover Teixeira here. My boy Dan Kramer just got a YouTube channel called We Want Picks, and he give a DraftKings pick every week. Here my picks for this week main event. Blachowicz and Adesanya. Of course, I want Blachowicz to win because he's winning. You know, light heavyweight. I'm fighting for the belt next and everything. Adesanya win. Who knows which is gonna defend, light heavyweight or heavyweight? Or middleweight. I don't know. Of course, I want Blachowicz to win, but I think Adesanya is going to win. Even though he's smaller guys in weight, but he's taller, he got more range. I think he's walking around very light. I heard this morning he's walking around 193. I think he stay light for a reason. He wants to move fast, be quick, not stay in the front of powerhouse Blachowicz. I think he's going to keep touching him, instigate him to commit an error, come after him and frustrate him and catch him, because Adesanya is very good with the counter shots, with the counter punch, and catch him and win when he made mistakes. That's what I think. Of course, Blachowicz got a big chance to knock out because of the power, but I don't think he got the speed or the footwork that Adesanya have. And another thing, Blachowicz definitely can win this fight in the ground as well, but he's not a guy that they're really going for the ground too much. He like to bang. So I think Adesanya is going to take this fight. He's going to take this victory. Adesanya looking amazing in his last few fights. He's getting better and better. And that's it, man. I thank you, Dan, to have me here. Good luck to you, man. And hope you guys got it right. Us.
How you doing, the Fernelly Feliz, Glover Teixeira coach? Let me tell you something. On this situation right here, I have to pick Adesanya. He's a better slicker. He's a good dancer. He's unbelievable. He moves and everything. I gotta go with him.
All right. Pit Master John Hackleman, Glover Teixeira's big brother, and I pick Israel because I think he had the best walk-in dance I've ever seen when he fought Robert Whittaker, and because of that, I'm picking him.
Fala aí, pessoal, sou Alex Pereira. I think Adesanya go to win. Eu acho que porque é cara inteligente, é cara completo e vai ganhar essa luta.
All right, so all three of them, or all four of them, going with Israel Adesanya. One of them from experience. He knocked Israel Adesanya out in a kickboxing match. Glover, just from breaking down fights in his division forever. Glover's coach from looking at fights forever. And then John Hackleman, because Israel has phenomenal dancing skills. But in all seriousness, they all went with Izzy. And basically, they all said his footwork is too good. His striking is too good. While Jan has a ton of power and he's the bigger guy, he's not going to be able to sort of keep up with Izzy. I'll give my pick in a minute. Let me go to you, Dan. I just want to ask you, so Glover talked about Izzy's weight this week, and Izzy's been very vocal about, I'm going to be my normal weight. I'm not going to balloon up. I'm not going to gain that extra weight for this fight. I'm going to fight at my normal weight. I'm still going to cut. Like, I'm going to do everything I normally do. You were a 185-pound fighter. You were a 170, then a 185-pound fighter, which is your probably most natural weight class. And we did take a fight on sort of shorter notice at 205, and you didn't have to cut that weight. How did that make you feel? Did you feel better and looser and great, I didn't have to cut any weight? Or did you feel, like you would have rather cut the weight and even fought higher?
No, it's funny. Yeah, I was expecting to feel great. I was like, oh man, this is gonna be great. I don't have to cut weight. I'll be 205. I was kind of eating what I wanted. Not terrible, but just didn't have to go crazy with the diet. But when you train for a number of years at a certain weight class and you get into a rhythm of fight camps and cutting weight, your body almost gets acclimated to that. I think Izzy said in one of his interviews that you think when you're heavier, you're going to feel better. I felt off. I felt sluggish. I felt slow. It's like, imagine being a runner, a marathon runner, and having, 20 extra pounds of weight on you. You're not going to compete at the same level. So I think there's ways to do it right over time. But I agree with what Izzy's doing, like the extra 10, 15 pounds, whatever he thinks he's going to gain, shouldn't make that big of a difference in the overall fight. If it was a grappling heavy fight where he was on his back, maybe, but I think it's better to be at a comfortable weight where you feel good, do what you're used to, keep your quickness, keep your speed, and don't go out of your way to gain weight. So I agree with Izzy, and from my experience, the extra weight, I actually didn't like it. So I would probably do the best fights I ever felt actually were the lightest. I was the lightest. So
who do you think wins this fight? So you're saying you agree with Adesanya's approach to cutting weight, treating it like it's an 85-pound fight. What do you think happens in this fight? Who do you think wins?
Yeah, so this is a tricky one. It's hard for me to pick. Well, first of all, let me say this. Glover should be fighting there tonight. I wish it was Glover fighting in there. I think this is a cool fight, but to be honest, I think most people wanted to see Glover versus Jan for the true light heavyweight championship. I just don't, if Izzy wins, what are they going to do? He's going to tie up the division. There's just a lot of questions coming out of this that I guess we'll see how they handle. But, Glover's a good friend, so I wish he was fighting, and I never wish injury or sickness on anybody, but if there was some way, he's out there, he's ready, man. If they give him the call, I'm going to be on the first flight out there. I'll sneak into the event if I have to. So, I'll get that out of the way. But yeah, hopefully he'll get his shot after this fight, depending how it plays out. So as far as these two go, Jan is obviously much bigger, much more powerful. He's not a really quick guy in terms of footwork. He's more, more stationary, but he's precise. He's got precision and power definitely power with his punches. He's got great kicks after his combinations. He does leave himself open a bit when he charges forward, which is where I think Glover mentioned it. And I think a lot of people think that's where Izzy's going to capitalize. But if Izzy makes the mistake and thinks he has him hurt and maybe not as bad as he really is and starts to exchange a little bit, we've seen what happens when Jan gets in exchanges with guys. He lands one shot and they go down. So I don't think that will happen. I think Izzy will be smart enough to pick his shots and methodically pick them apart over time. But, it is an interesting fight in terms of the power difference, the size difference. I think Izzy's going to do kind of exactly what Glover said. He's the faster fighter. He's got good foot movement. He evades really well, controls the distance really well, good jab, good kicks. So he's going to keep this fight at a distance. He's going to move away. He's going to stay out of the power. and he's going to really, really try to pick him apart from a distance, similar to Anderson Silva, what he used to do to guys, where they almost felt like they couldn't hit him. So it's a tough one to pick. I think Izzy's the more skilled fighter. But what I will say, because I mentioned Anderson Silva, I don't think Izzy is at that level yet. And, people reference the Anderson Silva fight where he fought James Irving at a catch weight or at 205. This is a different level of competition on both ends. I think Anderson at that time was the GOAT, right? And James Irving was James Irving. So this is Israel Adesanya, who I think is still paving the way to be one of the best. And Jan Blachowicz is the champion. So I think it's going to be a good fight. A lot of Izzy picking him apart. I think Izzy will win the fight. If I had to bet or put DraftKings money on it, I would take Jan at the plus 205 and the $7,000, but I don't have him in my lineup right now.
So I do have Jan in my lineup. I actually think Jan will win. I think he's too big. I think he has too much power. And obviously Izzy's probably the better striker and his foot movement, and Glover talked about it. You talked about it, but I think Jan is just too big, and I think he has too much power. And honestly, I think this is a big step up. And I don't want to say it's early in Israel's career, because he has a very storied kickboxing past. He has the 20-0 MMA record. So he has been fighting for a very long time. He has a ton of experience, but this is a big leap up. And I know he's defended his 85-pound belt a few times, but against who? Honestly, like Paulo Costa did nothing. Right. Yoel Romero did nothing. So it's not even like he's been in these wars and he's won these wars. The closest fight he's had in a while was Kelvin Gastelum, and Kelvin's a talented dude, but Kelvin should be a 170-pounder. So I'm not trying to diminish Israel's skills. I think he's phenomenal. I think he's going to dominate the 85-pound division for a while. I think this is a big step up. And while Jan is not, he's definitely not a journeyman, but he's had a lot of ups and downs in his career. I still think this is Jan's division. He's the champion right now. He deserves to be the champion right now. He's bigger. He hits harder. And I don't see him folding to the pressure like Izzy's last couple of opponents have. So I think Jan gets it done, and at $7,000, I couldn't pass that up. So Jacob, I'll let you.
Hold on, because I want to ask you a question, because trust me, I've looked at this every which way. I do think Jan has a path of victory, right? But I think it's really just landing that big knockout shot. But with you picking him to win and all that, like, how do you see this fight playing out? Over the course of however long you think it's going to go. You think Jan's going to go out there and knock him out in the first round, or you think Izzy's going to pick him apart for 4.5 rounds, and at some point Jan's going to land a shot?
I think it'll be a little of both. I don't think Jan's going to stop him early. I think Izzy's going to try to pick him apart. I think he's going to, stick and move, and Jan's going to Terminator style march forward and land those power shots. When we talked about it earlier, when we broke down the Peter Yan fight, you said, I don't think Sterling can deal with that power over 5 rounds. Right. I think this is the exact same thing. Izzy, listen, I don't know enough about his kickboxing career to say this definitively, but in MMA, he hasn't been hit as hard by anybody who hits as hard as Jan, and let alone over and over and over again. So I think he'll stick and move. I think his movement will be great. I think Jan just absorbs it, marches forward, lands his shots of his own, and eventually wears on Izzy. And I think he will get a stoppage eventually, much later in the fight.
Well, I hope you're right, because then they got Glover versus Jan for the light heavyweight title. There won't be any questions. So I hope so.
Well, and that was in the video we just watched. Glover's concern too was, I think Adesanya wins, but I hope Jan wins so that I can fight him for the belt, because if Adesanya wins, who knows what happens in the division.
Right.
So Jacob, what are your thoughts here? So Dan and I are split. The number one contender on planet Earth agrees that Izzy will win, and all of his staff and partners agree that Izzy will win. So am I a lone survivor here, or do you think Jan will win also?
I think this comes down to house money. Izzy is playing with house money right now. If he's already such a free and loose and confident fighter as it is, and you put on top of it that he's going up in a weight class, if he loses, Yeah, he loses. You know, he didn't win the 205 title, but he's still the dominant 185 champion. And he's already such a confident guy on top of it. And his striking is so clean. And you mentioned that he hasn't seen the power before. I think people see Izzy, they don't see toughness because he is such a clean guy. And you see him missing all these shots. But that Gastelum fight was an absolute war. And yes, Gastelum is a small 185 and Jan is a big 205. And there is difference there. But Israel Adesanya has won a kickboxing fight I think it was at heavyweight. And he won a pro boxing fight, I think, at light heavyweight. So he's gone up in weight before and felt, you know, it's not the same type of power, the same type of level of power. But he's done those things before where he's gone up and said, you know what, let's just go up. And he's won those fights. So I definitely have him in my lineup. I knew I was going to pick him in my lineup just for that confidence and those clean fights. And then I started watching the embeddeds, man. And there's something about Jan in his stocking cap, walking through the snow in Eastern Europe, going to train, that toughness, man. There's just something about seeing that. He goes in with an ice pick to break up the ice so he can sit in the ice, and he's got that deep accent. He's like, oh, this feels great. He's just sitting in just ice water and just like loving it. There's something about that toughness that I went from picking Jan and Sterling and doubling that up because I think you have to double one of those up. There's just too many rounds to spare. So I went from picking the Jan and Sterling fight to I watched the embedded, and there was something about that toughness where I think he drags us into a war with Adesanya. But I think people, you know, don't credit Adesanya's toughness enough in those wars. So I think it turns into a war. And I still think Adesanya is clean enough that he's not going to knock out Jan. I don't think he's got that power at this weight class. But I think he does enough to win. I think this could go a 5-round decision, man, where it's just a back and forth brawl. And Adesanya is just, you know, quick enough to avoid the big one where he gets, you know, hit, but he avoids the big one. So they're both in my lineup. I hope it's a 5-round decision. For Glover's sake, you know, like we're saying, I hope that Jan wins. He definitely should have got the title shot. But I think Adesanya, he pulls this one out.
Well, it's going to be a ton of fun. I'm really hoping COVID doesn't screw any of this card up right now because it is a rock solid card. So we'll see what happens.
Analysis are getting really, really good every week. I like that one. I hope the fight goes down like that.
Yeah, we brought Jacob in to like laugh at, and now he's doing actual research.
Right. From watching, I got to stop swearing. Watching Embedded, and geez, man. Got to step our games up. He's got multiple locks of the week in a row.
Next level intel from right here. Next level intel.
Right. He's probably driving by their house, seeing where they're going at night, if they're in bed early, peeking in their windows.
Tracker up right now.
Catfishing. So we'll see what happens. It's definitely an exciting fight. This whole card is exciting. So next up, we're going to walk through our DraftKings picks, build up our lineups, and go from there. Before you go, check out the description below. In there, we have links to our Facebook, our Twitter, our Instagram, and more importantly, to our DraftKings League. Check out the league, join the league, participate in the contests, and as we get going and as you start winning, we're going to start handing out gift cards and participating and doing things like that. So check those out. Every week, there are drops on every fight card. So make sure you check out this channel and our social media on Saturday before the fights start so that you have our most updated lineups and picks.